When my wife and I moved into our suburban neighborhood, I thought we'd finally achieved the dream. Quiet evenings, grilling on weekends, neighbors who waved but didn't overshare. The HOA seemed like a minor annoyance. You pay dues, keep your lawn neat, and life goes on. Right? Wrong. Enter Karen, the HOA president. Imagine if a mall cop and a kindergarten teacher had a baby and gave it a clipboard. That's Karen. Her rules weren't just strict, they were absurd. Our first violation? A garden gnome. A single fishing gnome by the mailbox. A week later we got this letter. Violation notice number 4421. Unauthorized ornament. Immediate removal required. Fine. $250. $250,000. For a gnome. First I laughed. My wife, who was 6 months pregnant, said, "Don't start a war. Just move the thing." So I did. Gnome relocated to the backyard. Problem solved? No. 2 days later. Violation notice number 4472. Mailbox color inconsistent with HOA approved beige spectrum. Fine. $150. Beige spectrum. I didn't know beige came in shades. That was the day I realized Karen wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was auditioning for dictator. And unfortunately for her, I wasn't the kind of guy to roll over. Karen had a sixth sense for pettiness. It was like she could smell happiness and fine you for it. One morning I left my trash bins out for an extra 20 minutes because I was on a work call. That afternoon, bam, another violation. Violation notice number 4480. Trash receptacles visible beyond approved window. Fine $100. 20 minutes. My neighbor Dave whispered to me later. She fined me for wind chimes. Said they violated the noise ordinance. Meanwhile, her backyard fountain runs like Niagara Falls. I started noticing a pattern. Karen only enforced rules when it made her look powerful. Her lawn had flamingos. Her shutters were chipped. She had fairy lights strung up in April. Yet none of those were violations. I started keeping receipts. Literally. I took photos of her house. Made a folder on my laptop. Karen Crimes. My wife told me, just let it go. Stress isn't good for the baby. I nodded but kept snapping pictures. Then Karen escalated. She showed up on my porch with 2 clipboard sidekicks. "Your shutters are the wrong shade of cream," she declared. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "They came with the house." She smirked. "Then you bought the wrong house." That moment I knew. This wasn't about rules. This was about domination. The letters kept coming, each one more ridiculous than the last. One said, Violation notice number 4501. Holiday decorations present outside of approved seasonal window. Fine $200. It was May. I didn't have decorations. But Karen did, patriotic red, white, and blue lights dangling off her gutters. Another one accused me of having overgrown grass. I went outside with a tape measure. It was 2.5 inches. Regulation said 3 inches max. She fined me anyway. So I fought fire with paperwork. I emailed the board with photos of Karen's illegal flamingos. No reply. I sent them screenshots of her lights. Silence. Finally, I marched into the monthly HOA meeting and said, "If you're going to fine me, fine her too." Karen smiled sweetly and said, "The board reserves discretion." Translation. She makes the rules. My wife was starting to get stressed, and that's when I drew the line. Pregnant women shouldn't have to deal with HOA warfare. I made a plan. Document every hypocrisy. Dig into bylaws. Expose Karen publicly. Because if the HOA wanted war, I was ready to go full scorched earth. Saturday morning. Sun shining, birds chirping, my wife sipping water on the porch. Then came the sound of boots. 2 men in reflective vests strutted up the driveway. No badges, no IDs. Just walkie-talkies and smug attitudes. Karen trailed behind them, grinning like a queen with her knights. One said, "Sir, we're with the HOA Compliance Patrol. We need to inspect your property." I laughed. Compliance Patrol? That's not a thing. Karen snapped, "It is now. Board approved." Before I could argue, one of them grabbed my wife's arm to pull her out of her chair. She screamed, her pregnant belly making it impossible to move quickly. That was it. Line crossed. I stepped inside, opened the drawer and came back with my Glock 19. Calm. Steady. I pointed it low, finger off the trigger. Let her go. The guy froze. The other stammered. Karen screeched. You can't do that. Firearms are against HOA rules. I smirked. Lady, the Constitution doesn't answer to your binder. They released her instantly. Her arm was bruised, but she was safe. I didn't fire a single shot. But make no mistake, if they'd pressed, I'd have emptied that Glock before they blinked. News spread fast. By Monday, the whole neighborhood knew about the Glock incident. Karen tried spinning it as me threatening unarmed volunteers. But everyone saw the bruise on my wife's arm. Dave said, Man, you should have called the real cops. I told him, not yet. First, I want to burn her with her own rules. That night, I pulled out the HOA bylaws. All 64 pages of fine print. And oh boy, did Karen have skeletons in her yard. Section 4.3. No lawn ornaments beyond approved decor. Flamingos equals violation. Section 7.1. Outdoor lighting restricted to seasonal periods. Her fairy lights equals violation. Section 9.2. Water features prohibited without permit. Her fountain equals violation. I printed it all. Labeled it. Added timestamps. By the end, my binder was thicker than hers. Meanwhile, Karen doubled down. She sent another final notice about my mailbox. I taped it to the fridge like a trophy, because soon that mailbox would be her undoing. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. Word had spread about Karen's fake cops and my Glock. People wanted answers. Karen strutted in like nothing happened, binder clutched to her chest. She started with her usual speech about community values and aesthetic integrity. I raised my hand. Before you go further, I have evidence. I dropped my binder on the table with a thud. Photos of her flamingos, screenshots of her lights, permits she never filed. I read bylaws out loud, word for word. Neighbors gasped. One woman shouted, She fined me for having a bird feeder while she has a fountain. Karen turned red. Those are exceptions. No, I said calmly. Those are violations. I showed the bruise on my wife's arm. The room went silent. Karen sputtered. That wasn't me. That was volunteers. I leaned in. Volunteers you hired. With no authorization in the bylaws. The board shifted uncomfortably. For once, Karen wasn't in control. The neighbors rallied like a mob waking up from hypnosis. Dave stood up. She fined me for wind chimes. Another yelled. She trespassed on my lawn. One woman held up a letter. She fined my kid for chalk drawings on the sidewalk. It was a full-scale uprising. Karen tried regaining control. This is slander. You'll all regret this. But the vice president of the HOA, who'd clearly had enough, slammed his folder shut and said, Effective immediately, Karen is suspended pending review. The room erupted in cheers. Someone started chanting ding dong. The witch is gone. Karen shrieked. You can't do this. I am the HOA. The VP smirked. Not anymore. Karen stormed out, red-faced, binder clutched like a lifeline. It was the first time the neighborhood had breathed freely in years. Without Karen, the neighborhood felt lighter. No more clipboards, no more fines for imaginary crimes. The board voted in new rules. Lawn ornaments allowed within reason. Trash bins could sit out 24 hours. Mailboxes didn't need to be beige spectrum compliant. Basically, common sense prevailed. My wife, now recovering, was showered with casseroles, flowers, and apologies. One neighbor even gave us a gnome holding a #Team Freedom sign. We signed a petition making compliance patrols illegal without board approval. No more fake cops ever. And Karen? Word is she tried to sue, but no lawyer wanted her case. 3 months later, a moving truck pulled up. She was gone. Dave and I clinked beers on the porch that night. To the fall of Karen, he toasted. I laughed. To the rise of the gnome. These days, my gnome sits proudly in the front yard again. He's got sunglasses now and a little sign that says, Still standing. The neighbors wave when they walk by. Kids play with chalk without fear of fines. My wife is healthy, our baby due any day now, and the community feels like an actual community again. Sometimes I sit on the porch, Glock holstered at my side, and think, all this started because one woman thought a gnome ruined aesthetic integrity. If there's a moral here, it's this. Never underestimate quiet homeowners. We read the rules. We take notes. And when you push us too far, we'll empty the Glock before you blink. Now every single house on our street has at least one gnome in the yard. Our rebellion. Our reminder. And best of all, the HOA doesn't dare say a word.